Home away from being alone.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing wonderful. This week, if you couldn't tell already, I am painting Ophelia. For those of you who don't know, Ophelia is a Shakespeare character in the play Hamlet. I'm a huge literature and art nerd, so I've always wanted to paint Ophelia in my own way and never thought that I would be able to do her justice, so I've been kind of pushing it off. I think I attempted it once a few years ago and it just didn't really work out, and now we're here. I'm a huge Shakespeare fan, and I also love the renditions of Ophelia. I think the painters are John Everett Melas, and then the other one is John William Waterhouse. Those are the two paintings that I was inspired by and I referenced a lot. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. We got so much stuff to go into. I always design and sketch out my ideas digitally before I do anything with traditional medium. The reason why I do this is because I really like to play around with colors in Procreate. I think this is a very safe way to play around with colors, and I actually learned a lot of color theory doing this on Procreate versus doing this in a traditional format, just because I get to visually see the color wheel while I do it, and it's just a huge way for me to learn and to play around with colors without messing up my painting and or even just missing out because I didn't really know what color I was using. For example, the shadow on Ophelia's neck that you'll see is actually a shade of yellow, but it appears blue next to her skin, and honestly I don't think I would have gone out of my way to figure that out. I'd probably been yeah, that's blue, but I would have never realized that it's actually a yellow color that just appears blue because of the colors around it, which is so cool. Color theory is wild and I love it. It's confusing though. The first thing that I decided to do was actually do some studies. Before this, I've never painted lily pads before. I really wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing, and I don't think I've ever took the time to really think about it and approach lily pads in a way where I would understand what I'm doing. For all of my paintings, if I decide that I want to paint something that I'm very unfamiliar with or unpracticed at, I usually try to go out of my way to at least attempt one study before starting the final painting to make sure that I understand how to approach a concept, which I'm super glad that I did, because my first study of the lily pads actually turned out pretty bad. It kind of just looked like a bunch of random ovals of color. It really didn't give off the vibe of lily pads for me, but what I did learn is how to approach it a second time. I think my issue was I was layering a lot throughout the whole painting instead of really taking my time to make sure the shape looked like a lily pad. That's where I went wrong. I think that visually that would be okay in a far distance, and it would probably help the composition out if it was all layered in the back. And then a quarter down from the top of the painting is when I started to take my time with each lily pad to make sure it made sense, that the shape made sense, and that if it was layering over another lily pad, that there was a curve to it. I think my second one turned out a lot better, and I'm very glad that I just stopped and retried. This actually happens a lot in my studies. If I am an hour into a study and if it's not looking right, I just stop and retry, because most of the time I learn quite a bit in just that short period of time, at least a little bit more, so I can do it to the best of my ability. The second study I did was portraits of Ophelia. I actually specifically designed just a quick portrait of her beyond the one that's going into the final painting, just so I have another thing to paint. I really love painting portraits, so the more the merrier, and they're just really fun for me, so I thought it would be a fun way to explore her as a character instead of just a one-time thing. And yeah, I really love how these portraits came out. I think I'm getting super comfortable with painting portraits with gouache, and it makes me so excited for art. I don't know. I love art. Overall, I think the portrait studies turned out amazing, and I had some notes that I wrote down around the study. I think that there was just some line art that I felt that was kind of weird. I accidentally made the face shape look very rounded versus what I drew out in my original design on the iPad, and I actually really loved how it turned out, just because I feel like in older paintings all the women look super feminine and almost like rounded and soft in the face, and I kind of gave the same vibe. And since this is like an older character, I felt like it actually added to it. So in my final painting, I took that into account and made sure that I rounded her face off a lot more. And I highly recommend doing these small studies before going into a large painting, just because you just learn so much. And even if it feels like you're repeating yourself, the final version is going to be executed so much better if you take the time just to refreshen your skills for one, and to just figure out how you're going to approach it all together. There's a lot of things that you can learn just repeating it at least once. I think the reason why I did this is because my last painting was the moon ballerina, which was my last video. I don't think I ever talked about it, but I really don't like how it ended up looking. I actually was very disappointed on the final result of the ballerina, so I wanted to make sure that I took my time to really figure out how to approach it instead of just like going into it blind. And yeah, I'm really glad that I did that.
Hiding everything in life feels very frightening, and I love it so much that I longer don't know why even. So violent, my mind, every thought I have, I'm dying. But it's like right, I know, might just meet some guy and cry a little. Help me, I need a good advice. Please don't say no, be my hero. You can tell me lies, please don't cut these ties. Need a hero, 'cause I got zero.
So hard, I think life's all about me, and it's hardly even snow, but I stay inside like it's the ice.
Alright, let's get into the final painting process. This is the first time that I'm ever using GOAUCHE's watercolor paper. I've heard so many people raving about this paper, so I was super excited to use it. The reason why I bought it was specifically because I am using it for Peachtober, and I decided randomly that I wanted to make my own sketchbook for Peachtober and do like a little bit of book binding. It's the first time that I'll ever be doing it, but I thought it was just a cheap solution to make a high quality sketchbook and have the exact amount of pages that I need, so I wouldn't be wasting it, and also I can decorate it my own. Anyways, I digress. That's not what this video is about. I had a lot to problem solve with this painting, one being the fact that I've never painted this large before. What I did was I went onto Procreate and made a 9x12" canvas, which is the size of the paper that I had, and put my original design in it. And I decided to move around the background a bit to fit a longer background, but also I was keeping in mind the composition of the final product, and I decided that 12 inches was a little too long to make the composition make sense, so I cut it down an inch. So I think it's 9x11, which is kind of a weird like sizing, but I think that it really worked with the composition. Another thing that I wanted to do is paint the lily pad so it was coming off of the painting. So what I did was I put washi tape around the edges on the space of which I was not going to paint at all, and then put another layer of washi tape to paint the dark background for the water. I took off the washi tape and I painted around the edges so it wasn't so clean cut and it looked more natural. So when I painted the lily pads off of it, it wouldn't look so clear cut. So the first thing I did was paint the dark background. And another issue that I had was I've only done 2 paintings before this, I believe, with large backgrounds with lots of detail, and on top of that having a full body portrait. And the issues that I had with these 2 paintings was that I painted the entire background and then put the painting of the portrait right on top of the layers of paint below it. The reason why I don't like this is, one, the colors are kind of off because usually the painting color below it affects the painting color that you put on top of it, and on top of that it becomes very textured with all the layer of paint. And although I really love texture in my background, I don't want it in the portrait. I really like very smooth looking portraits. I wanted to make sure that I painted around the portrait this time, which I didn't like at first because I feel like it looks very unnatural if you just try to paint around the portrait line. For example, like if you had a lily pad that was behind her and you had to only paint half a lily pad, I feel like it looked very unnatural just because the brush strokes weren't very confident right around the areas that the portrait's at. But for now, this works. I'm usually just painting these for fun, so maybe if I ever start doing commissions or something, I would probably invest in some more art materials to make the painting a little bit better. But for now, this is good. With all that problem solving aside, we can get into the painting process. Overall, the painting process was fairly easy. I was watching the new season of Sex Education while doing it, so I think I was slightly distracted. It turned out for the better. Like, I think I highly recommend to watch like a TV show that you're interested in while painting. And I know that sounds crazy, but I think that when I did move over to just using music, I get too fixated on small details and wanting to make it look perfect. For her blush and for like some highlights on her dress, some of it wasn't like perfect in my head, and I was really just like painting over it. I think I painted over the blush like 5 different times. I do really like how it ended up, but it just was issues that didn't need to happen. Like, I could have just been pretty confident in my first go around or even my second and just moved on, but instead I was just playing around with it way too much and it made it even worse. So I do highly recommend like watching a show that you really like while painting. It actually distracted me in a good way. And also, if you guys haven't watched Sex Education, it is so good. The new season, amazing. Look at the trigger warnings beforehand though. That's all I'll say. Beyond that, like I said, it was a fairly easy painting process. I had a lot of fun, and honestly, I think it turned out so good. Like, randomly, I paint stuff and I'm like, I don't know how I did this. Like, I'm impressed and also a little mystified at the same time. Do you guys ever feel like that in your painting? I feel like sometimes I just randomly do something that's really good and I'm very impressed by, and other times I just feel so bad about my art. It's like almost every other time, so I expect a bad painting after this. But it doesn't like bother me as much as it used to. When I do randomly do something that I'm very proud of, it's such a nice feeling and I relish it in a second. But it's okay if it's not all up. Like, I understand there's gonna be ups and downs, and if you're trying to get over that feeling as well, it's okay. Like, things are gonna be bad, but that means things are gonna be good as well. That's what it's all about. One thing I do want to point out is that the one thing I really love about painting with gouache, especially portraits, is how smooth it looks. Like, it is so satisfying, especially when you put like your first layer of paint. I think I showed a clip of it and it just looks so good. Like, it's the most satisfying thing to me is painting with gouache and like seeing perfect matte layer of paint. I love it. In this painting, I did use James Waterhouse's Ophelia painting as pretty much a reference to the background. I pretty much just took the background and did it in my own style, like as a master study almost. But I wanted to use my own reference for Ophelia just because I wanted to put my own spin on the character, and I really like the idea of her playing with her hair, like in James Waterhouse's painting as well. She was kind of touching her hair, but I just wanted to bring that to the next level. Like, I just really wanted her to like be like, yeah, I have long, beautiful, luscious red hair like everyone wants. And I found this amazing reference. I pretty much just used it directly. Usually I have to change a lot of my references. Like I like the pose, but I don't like the hair color or the dress or whatever. But this one was like pretty much perfect. So I just used it exactly, and I think it looks so amazing in the final result. So I'm very glad that I found this picture reference.
This time I need to wait it out. Hold on tight, there's a storm. I'm standing in the eye. When it rains, it pours, and you sure know how to make me cry. Thank God for the moon and how she lights up the sky tonight. You may think that you've lost me already. I feel that you tell me, but I'm still your girl.
I think that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. Please let me know what you think of this video. Like, do you like the style? Do you like that I included my entire process? I know that I pretty much just repainted a lot of things, but this is truly what I do to prepare myself to paint a large painting or an idea that I'm kind of uncomfortable with. So if you like that, I will definitely continue making videos somewhat similar to this, but if not, just let me know. I don't really need to include the entire process. I can just do the final painting process if you guys prefer. But anyways, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I'll see you next week for the first week of Peachtober. Bye!